Hello.
Hey, welcome along.
Hi, everybody. We are Nat and Mandy from the Infinite Me back again. Chat with you today. So the Infinite Me, we're all about living an infinite life and what that means to show up each day coming from your infinite space and playing with it all. So helping you to do that. So yesterday we spoke about the idea that the story is actually important. Like, so you could take that from so many different angles. We looked at it from, the storyline that we live each and every day. And then from a bigger perspective, I guess, came from the infinite space that it is just a story. And so you can play with it all and not let it run you as well. But you do actually have to look at the storyline that you are living out too sometimes to have some freedom from it, I guess, to kind of see what's actually being shown up for you, where you still have some power invested into different scenarios that play out in your life as well. So check out that episode from yesterday.
Yeah.
So today we were going to talk about the idea that nothing is bigger than you at the end of the day. So we often
that doesn't mean size.
Sorry?
Doesn't mean your physical size.
No.
If you've got a bit of extra weight on like I do, like you've got to feel like you're bigger than everything. But we're not talking about that.
That's funny. So the idea that like any problem, I guess, that you perceive that you might have in life, or feeling overwhelmed, or ideas like this is where the concept came from, was somebody was talking about being really overwhelmed with ideas and not acting on the ideas, and that was something I could relate to because I'm usually bombarded with ideas, and I definitely have often in the past, got really stuck kind of going, I don't know which one to do first. Like they all seem equally kind of good and drawing you in or inspirational, or maybe they feel too big. Like that's often was a feeling for me, where they'd often feel like I couldn't just jump straight into something because it was a little bit maybe beyond my capability, or at this point in time, or more just not knowing how to break it down. It felt like it was this really big thing to sort of big project to kind of start. And so the thing that come up around that was just saying, you're bigger than any of those ideas. Like you can never be overwhelmed by the ideas. That's not where the overwhelm is actually coming from. It's more that you're making it bigger than you. So the problem or the challenge or the idea, you're perceiving that it's way bigger, got way more power than you actually do, which is obviously not true at the end of the day. Like you're the creator of all of those things. So you ultimately are bigger, as you said, not in the size bigger, but just in, well, you can talk about it in that perspective, I suppose, because we think that these things are huge and they're overwhelming. That's why they feel overwhelming. But at the end of the day, it's shifting that perspective around what's the actual truth of that. You're the one that's creating all of those things. So you have to be bigger than that and shifting. So as we thought today, we'll talk about how do you shift that around, like the perspective on that.
Yeah, I think it's quite a natural feeling because particularly if you feel like you've got a bit of a purpose or a mission here type thing to help other people. And that might be a group of 10 people, it might be 100 people, it might be millions of people. Some people have really big drives to, I want to impact 1 million people type thing. That's not an unusual thing, particularly consciousness, transformative space. And that's definitely when it can start to feel, well, I'm one little person and I'm going to be impacting millions of people or 1,000 people type thing. How do I do that? Obviously, social media helps now because you can talk to that many people pretty easily. But there's still that energy that goes out from this one little body type thing that's going out to impact all these people. And it's like how it naturally feels like it's going to be bigger than you, because it is in reality, it is bigger than you, like in the real world.
Yes.
It definitely is bigger than you. So I guess it's about taking a step back, going, okay, what you're creating and what's coming through, the reason why you're actually feeling, and if this is a true feeling for you, not from an ego standpoint of, oh, I want to impact the world type thing and change everything. But if it does feel like you naturally are drawn to impacting people through your message, then that's come from an infinite space. So it's not actually you as a physical form. It's not even your idea. It's actually your infinite self's idea coming through you in its physical form, because it has to have a physical form to actually come into reality in the first
Yes.
place. So yeah, it's actually your infinite's message. So I guess it's about sort of stepping back from the message, not even taking credit for
No.
what's
Yes.
coming through you, and sort of going, well, it's not even my message, really. It really is coming from that universal infinite energy coming through me to
Yes.
then pour out of me to others.
Yeah. 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 Not you as the little human finite self. As I was saying, that's where as we've sort of talked about before, is where the ego kind of gets a hold of those things, and the ego would like us to think that everything is bigger than us, because then we won't actually start moving on those ideas, or start moving out of our comfort zone and getting out there more in the world. And because the more we start following that feeling, then the ego doesn't have a role anymore, so it's going to obviously try and get a hold of those concepts and put that outside of us. So the other thing where that kind of comes into is also as well is that we often project like ideas that might come to us. Our minds might immediately kind of go to, well, how can I make money from that? I know that's definitely a go-to thought for me with ideas that come through. It's always is, oh, how do I monetize that? Like straight away, like there's not even a split second between that, the idea and the thought process about making money for some strange reason. That but then you make that whole concept of chasing the money bigger as well. Like everything starts to get really overwhelming, whereas the idea is that your soul is bigger than the idea of chasing money. And often the ideas that we think are the ones that are going to make money are probably a very limited idea too, because we're making decisions based on something we've already done before, or something we tried before and that worked, or we've seen somebody else do something like that and that worked, so we're always referencing the past, collecting evidence, to validate that choice. Whereas if we were to stay in that infinite space and to know ourselves as, like what Nat was just saying about know yourself as the infinite energy that idea is coming through, and it's just coming through in our human body, it's not us at the end of the day, as you said, then we can stay in that bigger space and know that we are bigger than the idea, and therefore it can flow through us and create, and we'll have more access then to creativity that will probably then flow into making money, but it won't be that limited little idea that we think is the one that's going to be the fix-it-all thing, the solution to everything. So
yeah, and I think that is a pretty natural thing to, if you're starting a new project, particularly sort of thing, it's like, well, that becomes my source of income.
Yes.
Because that's how we're trained to think, that our money comes from our job or our project. It doesn't come, we don't sort of take a step back and go, okay, well, where does it come from before that? like where is it actually created? And as we've talked about before, quite a number of lives now, money, like anything, like any resource, it doesn't actually come from your job or a project that you're doing, or exchange of services or goods, like we've actually been trained to think it does. It actually comes from the infinite in the first place. Had to find a way here to planet Earth in reality, so it's coming through those things, because that's how we expect to get money. So in really letting go of that concept, I guess, it sort of does open up the project for so much more creativity and that infiniteness to flow through, and for money to come in all different forms into that project. And that's when you really do feel so much more infinite and sort of step back, because I guess when you really allow the infinite to come through, and it's showing up in such crazy ways at times, it's like, oh my God, I couldn't have even thought about that. How did that just happen? That's ridiculous. So yeah, suddenly it is bigger than you. Like I guess you start to see evidence of how much bigger it is than you when you start to get into your project, or you start following what feels true for you. And these sorts of things start showing up that you could never have expected, never have planned for. Just synchronicities that happen, people you meet, things that drop into your space, and it's like, oh wow, like that is truly amazing. And then to me, that is, so in the first part of the project, you might be thinking it's all you and stuff like that. But as you go along and follow what feels true for you in every moment, then you will get evidence of the fact that it's not you.
Yes.
And then I think it's a little bit easier to relax and go, okay, yeah, I can let go a little bit more of control of this project, or, how we're going to make the money in this project, or whatever.
Yes.
And you start allowing a lot more.
Yeah, it starts to come through. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had intuitive friend of ours that we've talked about before, 𝘿𝙖𝙫𝙫, who does intuitive readings with people, and she had done one with me recently, a couple of months ago, and I was telling her about all these. This was before we'd started this project, and I was telling her about all these different things that I'm wanting to do, like all these creative projects, and some of them were quite big, like quite would take quite a lot of time to roll out, sort of thing, and create. And but I had this equal sort of pulling for all of these like ideas, like, and they were just and she sort of like listened to everything I shared with her, and then she was just like, the problem is, like, you're coming from thinking that the little Mandy has to do all of these things, so like you're identifying as the human, Mandy with the little limited ego mind, and thinking that I have to somehow create all this stuff for these ideas to roll them out into the world, where she said, like, you're coming at it from completely the wrong way. Like, it's like you're the infinite energy that can get to do all of these projects, not the little limited person that's to try and work it out. Therefore, you can, when you're coming from that space and identifying with that infinite possibility space coming from that, then you can use your mind to help you in that process, and to break it down, and to I guess put a bit of a step-by-step process of how to get that project off the ground, or that idea, or whatever it is. But before that, it just feels like it's so big and you can't break it down. That was where my mind always goes, like, I don't know where to start. It's so big and it's so much bigger than me, and giving that idea so much energy. So I guess the whole concept of what we're talking about is like this: you need to get more excited about you, like, rather than the idea, because there's never going to be a shortage of ideas. Like, I think we run around thinking that the idea is going to go away if I don't act on it, and then we sort of get stuck because we're like, oh, but it's so big and I don't know what to do, like, and so we sort of go around in circles sometimes. But
somebody else might take my idea.
Yeah, all those kind of things. I mean, somebody else might do your same idea, but they're not going to do it the same way that you do it at the end of the day too. That's the other thing, is just like, if an idea comes to you, like we said, it's meant to come to you. Like, you've tapped into it. If you've tapped into something in your imagination, then it means it's possible. You might just not know how to do it from this little limited space, because you're looking at it from your little skill set and people that you know and things that you're referencing, and maybe where you are financially, and you think it's going to be something else. But they're all possible, but we're coming at them most of the time from the wrong angle, like from the really finite, limited space, rather than that completely unlimited, infinite energy.
Yeah, and trying to work it out, as you say, sort of thing. I think you made a good point. The mind definitely comes into the process, but it comes in at a specific time, which is after the ideas have dropped in and the creativity has started to flow.
Yes.
And the mind certainly helps in terms of the logistics here on planet Earth, who to contact, pick up the phone, do this, write this person a note, go here, meet this person, like whatever it is, like there's all that logistical stuff has to come into play to take action on the idea. You can't just sit there and hope that it all just manifests around you. So there is an action taking aspect to anything. And that is where the mind has to then come into play. So it is definitely helpful to have the mind. But the mind should not be governing everything, and it shouldn't be in control. It should actually be the servant to what's already coming through from the creative space and the infinite space. With like, go here and do this now. Like, that will be an idea that drops into your mind. It's like, oh, I've got to do that. Okay, how do I physically do that? I've got to catch the train. I've got to pick up the phone. What have I got to do?
Yes.
So I guess that's how the little you works with the big you, in terms of, and the mind works with the infinite space in terms of actually rolling something out, like taking action on something.
Yeah, I think there's that saying, I don't know saying exactly, but it's something around like making the the heart should lead the way, not the mind, sort of thing. Whereas most of the time we run it the other way. We let the mind dictate everything that we're doing. We sort of ignore what our heart is actually telling us. Whereas the heart is that infinite space that's coming through. The infinite feeling comes from that very heart-based love space. Whereas the mind gives us, as we said, like it references the past and very limited ideas and can't see the potential because it's, the potential sits in the unknown and the mind doesn't know that yet. So it can't actually project, an outcome for something. And so it just doesn't go there. It feels scary. It doesn't let you access that. And there is a quote that Einstein's got, and I just read it the other day too, but it's something around that effect of like imagination kind of thing. We've become like slaves to the mind rather than letting the imagination lead the way. So the imagination is actually the key to everything, like to solving all of our problems that we have in the world. But we've become a slave to the mind, and the mind made that our master. Basically, letting that run us, and it's only going to give us ever going to give us a very limited experience, like in life, because it's only referencing what it knows.
Can physically do, like it compartmentalizes, it takes in all the world around us, compartmentalizes it to make sense of it all, and it can only work with what it actually knows.
So the mind should be a servant to the imagination. I think that was something like the Einstein quote was saying. It's like it should the other way around. We've become a slave to the mind, but it should actually be the servant. So the mind is very good at helping us roll out projects and being logistic, running the logistics and breaking things down and working out how to do
patterns and systems.
Yeah, that's actually what its job is. But if we let that run the show, then everything is going to feel bigger than us because it's coming from that very limited space that it does outside our capability, because it's probably in an unknown capacity the answer to that problem that you're trying to solve right now, and you're trying to solve it from a limited space. So it's going to feel beyond your capability.
Having the heart and the mind come together and work together to then form the little you and the big you coming together in synchronicity type thing. Reminds me a little bit of 𝘿𝙖𝙫𝙞𝙪𝙨𝑊𝑟's TED Talk.
Yes.
So if you haven't seen that before, 𝘿𝙖𝙫𝙬𝙁 is
Insight, wasn't it? Stroke of Insight, I think.
Stroke of Insight, it's called. It's her actual talk. And she's a neuroscientist. So she had a very rare experience of being a neuroscientist who actually had a stroke. And so it happened one morning when she was getting ready to go to work, and she had a very interesting experience where she was actually quite conscious through the entire thing of what was going on. So she was able to sort of like really feel into and observe all the stuff that she had been studying for many, many years, actually now in physical reality. And she said it was the most bizarrest experience, where she would actually drift off as the stroke was getting more intense. She would drift off into what would be deemed as the right brain, which is where creativity, imagination, the infinite sits, that we all have access to in the right brain, which is also known as the feminine brain, which is why we all seem a bit chaotic, all the feminine aspect. And then, of course, you've got the left brain, which is the logic and the masculine side and the doing side of everything. So that helps, like we were just talking about then, who to make the phone call, like how to pick up the phone, how to catch a train, all those sorts of things that we need to do to function in the world. So it was drifting backwards and forwards, but like instead of the two of them coming together to work synchronistically, she was having one extreme and then the other extreme. So she was totally in her right brain, and where nothing even had definitions to them.
There was no limit.
She was actually seeing what the infinite actually looks like. So it was all just energy. So nothing had definition. The table melded into the floor, that melded into the fridge, that melded into the carpet, to the car. Like everything was, you couldn't even make head or tail of what was what. And so it's almost impossible to function in as a human being, like, because it's all just like the Matrix, pretty much, like we see in the Matrix movie. But then she would have the opposite experience where it was totally in the left brain, so she actually could function again, and she was actually trying to pick up the phone and make a phone call to her work to get help. And so she was trying to be the business card. She talks about reading the business card and trying to get the numbers off the business card to put onto the phone. But every now and then she drifts back into the right side again, and like she couldn't even work out that there was a telephone or that there was numbers on the business card. And then she came back in and she couldn't work out what numbers she'd actually already punched in. Like, it was just such an interesting experience. And I think by watching that TED Talk, and we'll put the link to it, awesome TED Talk, but this is exactly what we're talking about here, is that the two have to come together. The big you and the little you have to come together to work synchronistically to create reality, to roll out a project so that you don't feel overwhelmed and you can function with rolling it out.
And to bring it into form, I suppose, too, because that infinite space is it's in the formless space. So we do need the human experience and this 3D reality to bring stuff into actual form. So you have the idea that exists out in the unknown sort of creative space, but we actually do need the reality of this body in the finite world to bring that actual thing into form, as we've sort of talked about before. Like, it can't exist as form until we do bring it into this world. Otherwise it's just going to stay in that infinite space. Constantly.
It's just energy. It's very cool. Very cool.
So your ideas are not bigger than you.
What was that?
So I just said, so your ideas are not bigger than you. So remember that.
No, nothing is bigger than you. Doing exercise, if you're really facing getting to the gym or starting a new exercise regime or losing weight or anything like that, it's not bigger than you. You have to allow that infinite part of you. Because oftentimes, I guess, we go to, say something like that, like losing weight, we go to the outside world looking for motivation. So I'll look better, I'll fit into these jeans, people will love me more, people will notice me more, like all these pretty much ego-driven, attention-seeking things. And they might be done with the best of intentions, but they're still there underneath it all, driving stuff. So it is about stepping back from that ego space and allowing, because this is the stage I got to as well. It actually was around weight loss not long ago. But you know what? I'm actually really sick of trying to lose weight. I'm a bit done with it. And it just didn't feel true for me anymore. And I was just like, no, I'm going to totally let it go. And eventually I know that my inspiration will actually catch up with me. And if I drop the story of having to lose weight, then eventually I will naturally progress into eating better, to exercising more, actually wanting to do those things rather than forcing myself to do those things. And I was forcing myself. Like, I was trying to kid myself that I was actually enjoying it.
I'm like, the judgment around it.
And then the judgment that sits on top of that. Oh, I didn't exercise enough today. I didn't go for a walk. I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have eaten better. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. All that stuff. And that's the stuff I got sick of, was those stories constantly, and trying to almost manipulate myself into being excited about going for a walk and eating better. And I was just like, I can't keep doing that. Like, it's just not feeling true for me anymore. So I've let it go. We're now in Paris, surrounded by baguettes and croissants and chocolate and like ridiculous. But we have been walking every day and really enjoying it. Like, we've only been here a few days now. But we're right in the middle of Paris. I'm like going for a walk at 7 a.m. There is no one on the streets. It's so dead quiet here. And it's just beautiful. Like, the sun's just coming up. It's really quite cool. And just the places here, like, it's just magnificent. And it's sort of like, this is what it's meant to be like. It's meant to be really enjoyable and not hard to get out of bed and put your stuff on to go for a walk. Like, I'm actually really looking forward to it. I was like, okay, first step, I've done it. Okay, the inspiration's back for at least walking. That's cool. I don't know how I'm going to get off the baguettes and the chocolate while I'm here. I'm not going to promise that I'll do that. But it's so interesting, like, the actual enjoyment of those things now, rather than actually holding the guilt of like, I should be eating all these things. It's actually doing pretty much what the Europeans do. It's like, they just enjoy themselves. I don't really care. Like, we rocked up the other day and our homeowner had made a chocolate cake, like not just a light chocolate cake, a full-on mud cake for breakfast. So she goes, oh, I've got chocolate cake for breakfast. Like, awesome. Like, we're back in France. Like, only in France would you be eating that much chocolate for breakfast. But it's just like, it's like normal to them. I was like, yeah, whatever. I was like, that's cool. Like, I really like that. It's like really breaking down those mindsets, and it has to be like this.
Yes.
Into more just enjoy it. Like, have whatever you want, enjoy it. Don't have the guilt around it, and then see where your body wants to take you to. Like,
Yes.
it will actually progress to eating more healthier foods, perhaps, if that's what it needs.
Yes.
Your body will always go for the nutrients it needs, so it's going to seek those things out naturally. So just allow it to do that, I guess.
Yes.
Is what I'm saying. But this goes for anything in life, like this.
Yes.
Is
The body's always guiding us. Yeah.
Yeah.
The body's always guiding us to that expansive place. So whether that
Yes.
is food or exercise or around an idea or money, or like, it's always guiding us to the most expansive place. It's just when we put the judgment in it that it should be something different, or we can't see the outcome, and we try to go for that tried and true, thing that we've tried before, or somebody else told us worked, or social media tells us, anything that's outside of us, basically putting the power outside of us constantly rather than tapping into that feeling.
Yeah.
And knowing ourselves as that. So therefore we are bigger than anything that is presenting. Like, real us is bigger than trying to lose weight, or the concept of doing exercise, or making money, or moving on that idea that's been sitting there for 5 years. That is start bringing that focus back to you rather than the thing that's outside of you, and then natural movement will start to happen. You'll start to get the feeling coming through.
It is interesting, like when you sort of say have that expansive experience. It's like, maybe that's all I'm doing right now, is having an expansive experience to somebody else's culture. Like, what's to say that the culture that I've grown up in terms of, have muesli for breakfast and don't have too much milk, have lactose-free milk, or do this or do that, have more fruit, don't have coffee, like all these things. What's to say that that was actually correct for me or for anyone? And it's sort of like, I guess when you travel, you actually have the ability to have more experiences and just be open to, what does that culture do for breakfast? What does that culture, how much wine do they have? Do they eat more chocolate? Do they do this, do that? Like, just, it's almost, it's sort of cultural eating, I guess, as you sort of move around, and you're willing to sort of meld into that culture a little bit more and have that experience. And that's all it is. You're having a more expansive experience of what's possible for you. Not putting the judgment on this is right or that's wrong. And we often hear a lot of other travelers and stuff, like they might be vegetarian, but they're more, here's the term from Jodie, I'll remember it, in terms of just eating to the culture at the time, sort of thing. Like, it's sort of like, oh, I've gone to a culture where they eat a lot of meat, so I actually will participate at the moment in having meat because that's what that culture does. So they're more cultural eating, even though they have sort of their own set of standards that they try and stick to. But definitely a lot more. We've got Sharon actually writing some stuff. Hi, Sharon. Okay, here's Sharon's. Resonating with this talk, I feel exactly the same way in Europe. It just lends itself to walking and feeling happy. It does. It's just beautiful. What else have we got here? I do feel the bread with everything is a bit much, though. No. No, it's baguettes.
I mean, that is definitely a European thing, because my in-laws are Italian, and they definitely have bread with every single meal. Like, you can't not have a.
That's right. I remember.
Without bread on the table. It's just like, even if it doesn't go with that meal, there's still always bread on the table. Like, so I'm just like, why do we need so much bread all the time? Like, it's always there on the table.
And according to Sharon, cakes in France have no calories. Awesome. I'm going to test that out. And Louise is here too. Hey, Louise.
Oh, that does win.
I don't know what that was quite in relation to. Oh, baguettes.
Calories. Or...
People has baguettes. But I guess this sort of comes back to what we have been talking about this session, is like, nothing's bigger than you. Like, it doesn't actually have to affect you if you don't want it to. You can rise above all of it and just enjoy yourself. Like, that's the thing. there is that age-old thing we'll talk about at some stage where if you actually are enjoying your food, whatever you're eating, and there's no guilt to it, then there's actually almost impossible, even scientifically, to put on weight. So we will talk about that at some stage because it's pretty full on.
Yeah, it's all
no
the
calorie Wednesday. That's what we were talking about. No calorie Wednesday.
No calories on Wednesdays.
I like it. Yeah, that's it. It's about enjoying yourself wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever you choose to do. It's not bigger than you. You can actually just choose whatever you feel to do and enjoy, as long as you're enjoying it.
Yeah, just coming from that infinite space, making sure you're staying in that space and not letting the ego then get a hold of that. Well, I could just do whatever I want, because that's what can happen as well. So yeah, always checking in with your, getting in touch with that feeling. That's everything comes back to that at the end of the day. It's like that's the thing that guides you, is that expansive feeling. You can't go wrong when you're following that. Yeah.
100%. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, ladies. It was good to get your advice on no calories, and particularly no calories on cakes. Like it. And test it out.
Yes. That's good.
Cool.
We shall see you tomorrow.
Yep.
And
let us know in the comments what you got most out of this session, and
we'll put the link to that TED Talk too by 𝘿𝙖𝙫𝙞𝙪 as well. It's definitely worth checking out. So
awesome TED Talk. Yeah. Really, really great about these concepts we've been talking about, and the whole overall message of being infinite, where your true infinite lies.
Yeah.
Very cool. Alrighty. See you tomorrow.
Bye. See
Stay infinite.